We're back at the Cannes Yachting Festival this morning, very bright and early, to take a look at something that's very, very large, very modern and very electric. It's called the Silent 62. The first thing to note here is the scale of the thing. It is absolutely massive, 62 feet in length, 29 foot 5 inches in the beam. That's nearly 50% of the overall length, which takes us well up into sailing cat sort of territory. But also there's some very substantial elevation. I actually find it really very attractive in a kind of upright, confrontational, masculine sort of way. But the reason for that is the fact that this is not just a flybridge power cat, this is a 3-deck power cat, so a really substantial top deck that can be configured in a variety of ways, and we'll take a look at that in a bit. We're underway now with a boat full of journalists at 5.4 knots just pootling along, and as you can probably tell, the sound is pretty much non-existent. The only sound we're getting is the general chatter of the people and the ripples of the water as our wake disappears aft. No vibrations that are at all discernible, no noise at all, and vast solar panels both up above the helm there and on the hardtop for the flybridge itself, feeding that battery bank so that we don't have to default to our generator. As regards propulsion, we've got 2 banks of batteries, each containing 17 batteries, beneath the aft saloon deck there where these guys are. They total about 296 kilowatts. We also have a single 150 kilowatt generator, though in the future they'll be changing that for 2 80 kilowatt generators for extra redundancy in the system. And of course, as a catamaran, these central hatches, they're just going down into relatively shallow storage spaces. Access to the engine room is, of course, over at the side. We'll pick the starboard hull instead of the port hull, given that the hatch is already open. And when we get down here, as you can see, there's not a great deal to look at. There's the hydraulics for the rudder, there's the straight shaft. So if you climb down into the space and look forward, there is the electric motor. As I say, not a lot to look at, but by the same token, not a great deal to maintain. And that, of course, is a major bonus in terms of ease of ownership. At the back end of this boat, we have a couple of fixed low-level platforms, one on either side, and a large high-low platform in the centre, which, as you can see, is tailor-made to drop your tender down into the water. In the cockpit itself, which is of course extremely broad, we've got access to the fly there, to the side decks there, pretty wide side decks they are too. Sliding patio door, an L-shaped dinette over there on the port side, and a little bit of central furniture too, with storage underneath, a little bit of wet storage on either side, and a fridge down below. It's a decent space if you want to litter it with freestanding furniture, but realistically, the most fun is to be had elsewhere, not least in features like this. As I say, this is a really beamy, spacious boat, so there's no problem at all creating a little inset bench seat for maybe 3 or 4 people even, just to sit here in privacy between the forward and aft spaces and just gaze at the view as you're underway. Moving further forward, we got a little bit of overhang from this big upper deck, which is quite handy for shelter. You do have to mind your head at the forward end though, so you don't give it a bang. When we get to the foredeck, well, an enormous raised plateau with all the bits and bobs you need for your seamanship, for your anchoring, and also plenty of storage under there. But this foredeck also houses some slightly more useful spaces than that. On the starboard side, for instance, we've got great access down there to the starboard bow thruster. I say the starboard bow thruster, there's only one bow thruster, one stern thruster, both on the starboard side. But if you want to use this big cavernous space more profitably, you can also fit a transverse crew bed in here, and that is supplemented by this space on the port side, which happily on the showboat is rigged as a crew cabin. I'll pop down this ladder, which is slightly easier to access than that in the starboard hull. face aft, and there we have a nice big double bed, stooping deck head, but not bad at all. Plenty of storage, a little sink unit there, and a proper window. You get good windows throughout this boat. And further forward, there's your loo and your shower attachment. You can, of course, rig this solely for storage. But as on so many boats of this kind of size, it would seem like false economy not to stick a mattress in there and use it as a little overspill berth should you have an excess of guests. And down here we've got a recessed bow lounge, which is very attractive indeed. It's asymmetrical. We've got a little sun pad over on the port side, a couple of steps take you down in here. There's a table fitting will go in here, and there's another L-shaped settee, and if I perch myself down in there, even when we're underway, well, you're assessed below deck level. You're nice and sheltered. You're sheltered from above as well. It's a very, very attractive place to sit, and if you want access to the action, well, it's very handy. We've got a bow door as well, so you've got direct access from this foredeck back into the main saloon. But of course, the really big news as far as outside day boating entertainment goes has to be this enormous upper deck, so we'll head straight up there now. Again, because of all the space on offer, these steps are very generous, quite shallow, easy to climb and quite secure. And when you get up here, well, it starts off with a huge table and seating section on the starboard side, leading over to a bar and galley just behind that nice sociable helm. That too occupies an L-shaped bench rather than individual seat pods. So it really is a very sociable enterprise helming from up here. Behind that galley we've got another L-shaped seating area, more casual this time with a smaller table. A companionway in the centre, and on the starboard side, as people scatter to avoid being in my video, there's another little L-shaped unit, and that's not the end of it. Up this little companionway to the aft end, we've got a broad rank of sunbeds right the way across, each with slightly raised headrests for extra comfort. And the hardtop ends just here to give you plenty of sunshine if you want to come and sunbathe with wide open views. But of course that hardtop is pretty enormous, and it needs to be, because it's used, as you can see, for the solar panels, just to keep that battery bank properly fed. In any case, in terms of facilities, this galley is pretty good. I really like the raised bar area, an extra 3 stools just to keep the skipper company. And if you're a family of 4, a couple of kids, there's plenty of space for the 4 of you to sit in here together when you're on a passage. As you can see, there are plenty more solar panels just above the lower helm there. And the galley itself comes with a decent sized sink, masses of work surface all the way around. It completely orbits you. We've got a nice big fridge there and an ice maker there. Interestingly, no cooking facilities that I can see on this boat, but I imagine that's only a question of asking the guys at Silent to incorporate it, because of course electricity on this boat is not in short supply. Moving round to the helm station. Oh, this is pretty interesting too. Absolutely no switch gear at all to speak of. We've got a couple of 12-inch plotters and a display in the centre that tells you the state of charge of your batteries, so that you can adjust your range accordingly. We've got the twin throttles on the right hand side, our thrusters here, MFD remote, and this is interesting, no steering wheel on this boat. This is kind of a commercial style rod, just push it to the green zone to turn to starboard, to the red zone to turn to port. But apparently they're telling me it confuses quite a few people, so actually on subsequent models there are going to be steering wheels, more traditional steering wheels, instead of this. Now this is of course quite an attractive setup in its open configuration, but you can of course have it closed off entirely with glass, and that's what makes it a third deck rather than a flybridge. Or you can even have the owner's cabin and ensuite up here with fantastic all-round views and extra privacy. But talking of accommodation, well, the cabins of course are one of the key areas of compromise on any power cat. So let's pop in and head down to the starboard side first. Now the starboard side has 2 stairwells, one aft, one forward. The porthole has only the one stairwell, so we'll pop down into the aft starboard stairwell first and head back, and we get a double bed. transverse facing out through these enormous hull windows with the little opening port lights. That's a very nice setup. It occupies the entire space. You can only access one side of the bed, but of course with any cat you're limited in terms of the breadth of the hull. You have plenty of storage in here, hanging storage. Quite a nice fit out too, and even though the deck head does drop to around about 5.5 foot, I would say, there's loads of room to sit up in bed there. There's a little sink unit there too, and ahead of that we've got the toilet in the shower, a little rain shower up there. Again, wonderful window, good views. Not space for a separate shower in this occasion, but if we head further forward you'll see that there is space in the forward part of the hull for a slightly uprated form of bathroom. It's just behind the lower helm. Pop down on the starboard side here to a central area, and it's split between a double cabin forward and a single amidships. So we head to the smaller one first. Rather than being transverse, this one runs fore and aft. But with the doors closed, of course, you still get a great view from bed level. Nice little alcove for storage of stuff you need to hand, plus higher level storage as well. Storage under the bed, storage over on the outboard side as well. No shortage at all. And here we are, separate toilet, separate shower with its own little ledge so you can sit down. Again, a very attractive wide open window, loads of natural light, and headroom in here, if I reverse the camera, is really good too. And that's the story throughout this boat. And actually, given its external aesthetic, you'd pretty much expect that. Another rain shower, nicely fitted out, quite plain, but it feels good. And further forward, the double, transverse this time, so again you get to look out through those big hull windows. We've got a little dressing table here, and little bedside storage units, as well as open quick grab stuff. And further forward, even though we've got the hull tapering here a little towards the bow, we still get a little ledge for a seat, we still get a rain shower, we still get lots of standing headroom and a separate toilet and shower. So that's pretty good use of the space on the starboard side. But if you head over to the port side now, to that one staircase further aft, just ahead of the C-shaped galley, well, this has just two cabins, so of course they're both larger and slightly more plush. Now at the bottom of the stairs we've got the utility zone, your washer dryer, and if we head aft first, well, we have a twin cabin running fore and aft, hanging storage, dipping deck head again, but very well managed. There's no point in here where you think the headroom is a little pinched or tight. And this is particularly interesting. So we have sliding doors and a separate toilet and sink with storage and mirrors, and the shower is accessed through here. But instead of a blank bulkhead on the outboard side, you actually get a window. So while your partner's having a shower, you can just stand there having a chat and watching, which is a rather lovely feature. I like that a lot. And it's mirrored further forward. There we are. Same sort of setup and a little window for a morning peep show. I'd quite like it actually if there was a window further forward as well, so that you could chat to your partner while they're having a shower and you're lying in bed being lazy. But this is probably the best cabin on the boat. Access to both sides of the bed there, quite raised, so we've got storage underneath. Again, even though we're slightly tapering here, we're slightly on the angle, more big windows, plenty more headroom, another little dresser. And as I say, though the fit out is modest and quite pared back, quite modern, it doesn't lack in luxury. It feels quite premium. Rather than trying to deliver a verdict on the day, this is quite a complex and interesting boat in its own right, so I thought it was best that I wait a couple of weeks and mull things over in the hope that I can get close to what this boat really is all about. So we'll start with the easy stuff. Now, this Silent 62 Open is a subtly prettier boat than the closed variant. There's no doubt about that. And if you tend to favour warm weather cruising regions, it's also a more practical one too. Now, on the day we had about 14 journalists on board plus crew, but between the side deck alcoves and the aft cockpit and the bow lounge and the kind of subtly zoned regions of that upper deck, there must have been 8 or 9 places for each of us to just rest and find a quiet drink, a little bit of intimacy away from the main crowd. So that's very positive. Now, Silent likes to talk about this boat as a compact super yacht, and with more than 2,500 square feet of usable deck space, plus all those intimate little zones and some really excellent quality in terms of the execution, you'd have to say that is fully borne out. As for the more complex stuff, well, as you might expect, that revolves around the helming experience. Now, on this test platform, we've got sufficient solar panels to generate in excess of 100 kilowatt hours per day. We also have the 150 kilowatt generator, and we've got a pair of battery banks totaling 286 kilowatt hours. Now, they operate through the range-topping 340 kilowatt motors. So between 3 and 5 knots, we're using about 10 and 18 kilowatts of energy, which is about the same as you might expect to replace by means of that solar array in ideal conditions. So in principle, you could cruise all day without a break at all. But of course, that is not the way most of us tend to go boating. We tend to cruise for an hour or two, anchor up for an hour or two, have some lunch, do some fishing, do some sunbathing, and on you go again. And that's why Silent suggests that in a typical holiday region on the average sunny day, the solar panels alone on this boat should be enough to produce the energy you require for your propulsion systems as well as your household and your navigational loads. Now, if you want to go at greater pace for extended distances when the conditions are imperfect and you're not getting quite the same amount of energy from your solar panels, well, that's when your diesel generator can be used as a backup supply to preserve or replace the power in your battery banks. It's interesting to note, though, that even though we have a usable range in good conditions of around about 2,000 miles at 6 knots and nearly 3,000 miles at 5 knots and on towards 5,000 miles in principle at 4 knots, well, you can uprate the battery banks to 348 kilowatt hours and reduce the power of the motors to around about 50 kilowatts, so you can actually extend that range further. But look, given Silent's CV, not to mention its transoceanic success with the original 64, there's no doubt that its ocean crossing claims for this boat are completely credible. But the need for things like a range extender or a kite sail or bladder tanks in favourable conditions, well, that makes that element of the package more a matter of principle for most of us than everyday capability. But that is not a criticism, because even on the modern market, a great many electric platforms, they feel like test platforms for early adopters who then have to kind of adapt their lifestyle to suit the limitations of the hardware. But this new Silent 62 feels like a very practical solution for real-world boaters right now. It enables you to enjoy a mixed diet of day boating and cruising adventures, free from the need for shoreside support, and safe in the knowledge that should you want to operate in silence for extended periods without recourse to your generator, then that is entirely achievable. Now, if you have something to say on the matter, please do leave your comments in the section below. We'd love to hear from you. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like button, and if you want to see more videos like this in the future, then please do subscribe to the Motorboat and Yachting channel.